toward him and then smiled. He could not make out even now how Rose and Associates had managed to snare him so easily. Experts who realized a mammoth corporation like this, it embodies too much experience. It possesses, in fact, a sort of group mind, and Alden Rachel Rosen consisted as spokesman for the corporate entity. His mistake evidently had been in viewing them as individuals. It was a mistake he would not make again. Superior, Mr. Bryant, Alden Rosen said, will have difficulty understanding how you happen to let us void your testing apparatus before the test began. He pointed toward the ceiling, and Rick saw the camera lens. His massive error in dealing with the Rosens had been recorded. I think the right thing for us all to do, Alden said, is sit down. And he gestured affably. We can work something out, Mr. Decker. There's no need for anxiety. The Nexus 6 variety of android is a fact. We here at Rosen Association recognize it, and I think now you do too. Apologies. Rachel, leaning toward Rick, said, how would you like to own an owl? I doubt I'll ever own an owl, but he knew what she meant. He understood the business the Rose Association wanted to transact. Tension of a kind he had never felt before manifested itself inside, exploded leisurely inside part of his body. He felt the tension, the consciousness of what was happening take over completely. But an owl, Alden Rosen said, is the thing you want? He glanced at his niece inquiringly. I don't think he has any idea. Of course he does, Rachel contradicted. He knows exactly where this is heading, don't you, Mr. Deckard? Again she leaned toward him, and this time closer. He could smell a mild perfume about her, almost a warmth. You're practically there, Mr. Deckard. You practically have your owl. To Eldon Rosen, she said, he's a bounty hunter, remember? So he lives off the bounty he makes, not his salary. Isn't that so, Mr. Deckard? He nodded. How many androids escaped this time? Rachel inquired. Presently said 8. Originally 2 have already been retired, but someone else, not me. You get how much for each android? Rachel asked, shrugging. It varies. Rachel said, if you have no test you can administer, then there is no way you can identify an android, and if there's no way you can identify an android, then there's no way you can collect your bounty. So if the Voight-Kampff scale has to be abandoned, a new scale, Rick said, will replace it. This has happened before, 3 times to be exact. But the new scale, the more modern analytical device, had been there already. No leg had existed. This time was different. Eventually, of course, the Voight-Kampff scale will become obsolete. Rachel agreed, but not now. We're satisfied ourselves that it will delineate the Nexus 6 types, and we'd like you to proceed on that basis in your own peculiar work. Rocking back and forth, her arms tightly folded, she regarded him with intensity, trying to fathom his reaction. Tell him he can have his owl, Eldon Rose grated. You can have the owl, Rachel said, still eyeing him. That one up on the roof, Scrappy. But we will want to mate it if we can get our hands on a male, and any offspring will be ours. That has to be absolutely understood. Rick said, I'll divide the brood. No, Rachel said instantly. Behind her, Eldon rose and shook his head, backing her up. That way you'd have claimed the sole bloodline of Alice for the rest of eternity. And there's another condition. You can't will your owl to anybody at your death. It reverts back to the association. That sounds, Rick said, like an invitation for you to come in and kill me, to get your owl back immediately. I won't agree to it. It's too dangerous. You're a bounty hunter, Rachel said. You can handle a laser gun. In fact, you're carrying one right now. If you can't protect yourself, how are you going to retire 6 remaining Nexus 6 Andes? They're a good deal smarter than the Grisori Corporation old W4, but I hunt them, he said. This way, with a reversion clause in the owl, someone would be hunting me, and he did not like the idea of being stalked. He had seen the effects on androids, and it brought about notable changes even in them. Rachel said, all right, we'll yield on that. You can will the owl to your heirs, but we insist on getting the complete brood. If you can't agree to that, go on back to San Francisco and admit to your superiors in the department that the Voight-Kampff scale, at least is administered by you, can't distinguish any Andy from a human being, and then look for another job. Give me some time, Rick said. Okay, Rachel said. Well, leave you in here, where it's comfortable. She examined her wristwatch. Half an hour. Eldon Rosen said. He and Rachel filed toward the door of the room silently. They had said what they intended to say. He realized the rest lay in his lap. As Rachel started to close the door after herself and her uncle, Rick said starkly, you managed to set me up perfectly. You had it on tape that I missed on you. You know that my job depends on the use of the Voight-Kampff scale, and you own the goddamn owl. Your owl, dear, Rachel said. Remember, we'll tie your home address around its leg and have it fly down to San Francisco. It'll meet you there when you get off work. It, he thought. She keeps calling the owl it, not her. Just a second, he said. Pausing at the door, Rachel said, you've decided? I want, he said, opening his briefcase. briefcase to ask you one more question for the Voight-Kampff scale. Sit down again. Rachel glanced at her uncle. He nodded, and she grudgingly returned, seating herself as before. What's this? She demanded, her eyebrows lifted in distaste and weariness. He perceived her skeletal tension, noted it professionally. Presently he had the pencil of light trained on her right eye and the adhesive pan again in contact with her cheek. Rachel stared into the light rigidly, the expression of extreme distaste still manifest. My briefcase, Rick said as he rummaged to avoid the conforms. Nice, isn't it? Department issue? Well, well, Rachel said remotely. Baby hide? Rick said. He stroked the black leather surface of the briefcase. 100% genuine human baby hide. He saw the two dial indicators gyrate frantically, but only after a pause. The reaction had come too late. He knew the reaction period down to a fraction of a second. The correct reaction period there would have been none. Thanks, Miss Rosen, he said, and gathered together the equipment again. He had concluded his retesting, that's all. You're leaving, Rachel said. Yes, he said. I'm satisfied. Cautiously, Rachel said, what about the other 9 subjects? The scale has been adequate in your case, he answered. I can extrapolate from that. It's clearly still effective. To Eldon Roslin, who slumped morosely to the door by the door of the room, he said, does she know? Sometimes they did. False memories had been tried various times, generally the mistaken idea that through them reactions to testing would be altered. Eldon Roslin said, no, we programmed her completely, but I think toward the end she suspected. To the girl, he said, you guessed, when he asked for one more try. Pale Rachel noted fixedly. Don't be afraid of him, Eldon Rosen told her. You're not an escaped android on Earth legally. You're the property of Rosen Association. Use this as a sales device for prospective immigrants. He walked to the girl, but his hand comforting on her shoulder at the touch, the girl flinched. He's right, Rick said. I'm not going to retire, Miss Rosen. Good day. He started toward the door, then halted briefly to the two of them. He said, is the owl genuine? Rachel glanced swiftly at Eldon Rosen. He's leaving anyhow, Eldon Rosen said. It doesn't matter. The owl's artificial. There are no owls. Rick muttered, and stepped numbly out into the corridor. The two of them watched him go. Neither said anything. Nothing remained to say. That's how the largest manufacturer of androids operates. Rick said to himself, devious and in a manner he had never encountered before, a weird and convoluted new personality type. No wonder law enforcement agencies were having trouble with Nexus 6. The Nexus 6 he had now come up against Rachel, he realized she must be an Nexus 6. I'm seeing one of them for the first time, and they damn near did it. They came damn close to undermining the Voight-Kampff scale, the only method we have for detecting them. The Rosen Association does a good job, makes a good try anyhow at protecting its products. And I have to face 6 more of them, he reflected before I'm finished. He would earn the bounty money, earn every cent, assuming he made it through alive.